Those who have been to a ruined wedding, what happened? Leading up to my friend's wedding, his father had been battling cancer after a terminal diagnosis. And it was touch and go whether he would be well enough to attend the wedding. In the end, he was too unwell to attend despite wishing that he could. Just as we got to the wedding reception, my friend was informed that his father had just passed away. It was devastating. Attended a wedding reception and was seated near the cameraman. An aunt of mine was sitting closer to the camera and spent the evening commenting and gossiping about everyone, and much of it came out on the video. The cameraman was great. He did 2 copies, one edited and the other no holds barred. The unedited version is the stuff of legend. Bonus DVD feature, director's commentary. Ooh man, this reminds me a bit of my wedding video. My maid of honor showed up drunk and late to the wedding, having gone from her hair and makeup appointment to have a few drinks and a romp in the hay with the guy she was screwing before heading to the wedding. She continued drinking during photos, at one point locking herself in the bathroom with my bouquet for a good while and throwing the whole photo schedule off. And by the time we got to the reception, she was so wasted she couldn't stand for the first dance, instead going straight to someone else's assigned seat and face planting into their plate. My sister decided that was enough of that and escorted her out. My legendary videographers caught the moment of her being escorted out and put it in slow-mo. To the untrained eye, it's just 2 bridesmaids walking with their arms around one another, but to anyone who was there, it completely immortalized the whole incident. Similarly, my photographers got a picture of her trying to snuggle my little niece, and the look on her tiny innocent face is like, somebody please get this drunko off me. This didn't ruin the whole wedding, but it surely didn't brighten my day. After the ceremony, we were standing in front of the altar and people took turns to congratulate us. As it was my mother's turn, she took my hand and told me she's sorry she raised such a bad person like me. Thank God my husband doesn't speak her language well. Your mom's a hag. Was she drunk? This was one I worked at. After the ceremony, right at the start of the reception, photographer was taking jumping photos of the bride and bridesmaids, so they were all jumping in the air while wearing heels. Bride landed and dislocated her knee, then passed out and kept going in and out of consciousness. We called an ambulance who turned up and fixed her knee, etc., but she wanted to continue with the wedding. She then had the first course of the meal and threw up down her dress, and had to sit with her mum in another room while everyone else danced, etc. Felt so bad for her as she spent the rest of the evening crying. I'm imagining everyone awkwardly doing the Cupid shuffle while avoiding eye contact with the sobbing bride. Okay, so no jumping photos in my future wedding now, yikes. It was a big wedding, over 300 people. Turns out the bride had been having an affair with her cousin's husband. The cousin had known for a little bit, but waited until the wedding to go table to table, letting everyone know the bride was sleeping with her husband. Poor groom was blindsided. Worst part was his father-in-law was well off and opened up a restaurant for him. Well, he lost his wife and his restaurant. Killing the business is ice cold. Hey, sorry my little princess, ripped your heart out, now fuck off, I won't be funding this venture anymore. Easily could have ruined the wedding, embarrassed the bride, and saved the groom from the marriage in one go still. All she had to do was tell the groom right before the wedding instead of going table to table after. Then, if she wanted to, she could have started the gossip train when people wondered why the wedding was cancelled right before on the day. You can be a bitch, but like a lower level one, if you try hard enough. Just saying. Signed, lower level bitch. I used to do catering work, and this one time my boss sent me to a remote location in the woods on a beautiful river. I found out while we were loading the truck that the boss wouldn't be going and that I was essentially in charge. My boss promised that everything was taken care of, set up, etc. So, you can imagine my surprise when I arrived to this remote location and literally nothing was set up. We were only about an hour early, so I frantically started trying to get the tent in order. We needed extension cords to run the coffee and tea, there were none. We needed tables to set up the food, there were none. I somehow whipped up impromptu everything for the missing things, and just as the bride and groom are arriving, we blow the fuse for our only power source and the place is plunged into darkness. We reset the breaker, I move some stuff around. Blow the fuse again. This delicate dance went on for the entire evening. Through speeches, first dance, the works. I think the worst part of the entire experience was when we went to rinse our dishes before boxing them up and found out that when we blew the fuses the water pump for the place stopped working and needed to be primed again. At that point I said forget about it, we'll take them back dirty, and the crew and I spent several more hours after the long ride home doing them. That was the day I worked a 15-hour shift without a break and still ruined the wedding. Needless to say, I quit that job. Was it a part of your boss's responsibility to make sure everything was set up, or were they lied to by the couple about that? It wasn't your fault, you were set up to fail. I was studying photography and used to act as an assistant to a well-known wedding photographer. Went to a couple's wedding. He shot digital and I shot black and white film. Spent all day with the couple from 9 AM through till 2 AM the next morning when we left. I could see how genuinely in love they were. It was only a day but I got to know them quite well and really liked them both. The next morning, I get a call from the photographer and his voice was shaky. He explained that the groom had been murdered that night after the reception party. 3 guys had broken into their bungalow to steal wedding gifts. The groom got out of bed to stop them and they executed him in front of the bride. I was in shock for about 2 weeks. This story was in South Africa, if that helps explain how or why this happened. The next weekend, the photographer and I went to the bride's house to present her with the photos. We'd worked together to get the job massively accelerated so she had the photos of her husband. We did it at our own expense and didn't charge her a penny for the day or all the prints and album. Sort of the least we could do. Because my photos didn't matter as much, I'd been able to simply capture those natural moments between them, rather than staged wedding photos. So they had the normal album pics but also about 150 snaps of just them being a couple. She was in tears from the moment we arrived till we left a few hours later. She was a shadow of the women I'd met only a week earlier. That shit still haunts me. This one shook me up more than any other response. Wow. This is so sad. Imagine finding the love of your life, having the happiest day together and celebrating the marriage and family you're creating, and some assholes take your love away from you. All for money. That poor woman. My heart breaks for her. The wedding was at a state park that's famous for its giant gorge/waterfall. I don't know whose idea this was, but someone suggested a photo overlooking this gorge and everybody was game. The wedding party went around a stone security barrier and the maid of honor literally fell off the cliff to her death. It was like 500+ feet. Okay, this ties for worst wedding story in this thread. Edited, many more death stories have been posted, so we're up to something like a 20-way tie by now. August 1992? Was a guest of friend of the bride, did not know anyone attending. Very expensive over-the-top place, several hundred guests of this very Italian wedding. Maid of honor grabs mic at the cocktail hour, begins her speech, rambling, drunk. Quickly devolves to stating the recently deceased mother of the bride was against this wedding and that's basically what killed her. Plus Vinny will never give up prostitutes. She is tackled by several people and dragged away. The happy couple is separated and divorced within a year. Plus Vinny will never give up prostitutes. She really went there. Maybe not ruined, but it definitely got tense. Started with the best man/groom's brother just absolutely roasting the bride and her parents. Basically called them gold diggers and stuff in front of several hundred family and friends. Then they cut the cake. Apparently, the groom was told under no uncertain terms not to shove cake in her face. Well, he did it anyway and she stormed off, not to be seen for 20 minutes. Reception went on as planned, she got wasted and I'm told she passed out that night in the middle of the street while still in her wedding dress. Pure class. They're divorced now. I've never seen anything that starts with they were told to not shove cake in the bride's face that didn't end with they're divorced now. Baseline disrespect of the bride's wishes doesn't usually get better after the cake shoving incidents. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.